Hello, my name is wes-bush. I'm the author of this book on product-led growth and the host of the Product-Led Summit. So the whole reason why I created this video is because I wanted to quickly show you how you can get the most value out of the Product-Led Summit. And so that is really my goal, but I wanted to sweeten the deal for you. So if you actually stay until the end and take action throughout the Product-Led Summit, I have a free copy of this book that I am happy to send to you. So pay attention, and I want you to take action, really put in the work to get the most value out of this summit. So without wasting any more time, I will dive right into the top 3 things you can do to get the most value out of the summit. So the first one is pretty self-explanatory, but the thing is, most people don't actually do this. And the biggest difference, in my opinion, between a virtual event versus a physical event is, well, physical events, usually they take you out of the day-to-day of your work, and then you're at an event in a new location, and you usually book that time off. You don't necessarily schedule calls, or maybe if you're in sales, you schedule calls at the conference. But the thing is, you actually carve time out for it. So whenever it's a virtual summit, what I encourage you to do is carve some time out. So you will probably notice that the majority of the talks are going to be in your morning or maybe even your afternoon. So whenever the majority of the talks are, I try to stack them up back to back and block off that time and make sure you're available during that day. Maybe it's you only have 2 hours. Block off that time and get through as many of the videos that are important to your business as possible. Because if you can carve out that time, you're going to be able to learn more and take more action. So the first part is build a growth engine. So first off, what the hell is a growth engine? So the way I really look at it is, well, it's easier said than done, but the growth engine is like this. We have inputs on one side, and then we have our outputs. So inputs could be something like, okay, let's do something like trade shows, advertising, email campaigns, throw them into the business. We have those results. Now, what kind of outputs are we going to get? So any great business understands what inputs drive the outputs that they want to get. And so that's really what I want you to think about as you're watching these talks. Think about, okay, there's a ton of ideas here. What are those inputs that we could do to really start seeing more of these outputs that we want as a business? So that's really all it is. And all you really need to do is understand the inputs and outputs, which is much easier said than done. So outputs are the easier part here. We can look at whether it's, let's say it's Chargebee, Stripe, even Profitwell, and see, okay, how are our revenue numbers stacking up against last month? But the input side of things, it's actually a little bit trickier. So whenever we look at the outputs you need to track, there really are just 6 main ones for most SaaS businesses. Maybe it's the number of signups, number of your upgrades, average revenue per user, customer churn, annual recurring revenue, and MRR. So if you don't know these outputs, stop the video, find them out, because without knowing the outputs, you don't know actually what you're driving towards as a business and what inputs will actually help you drive more of that specific output. So if you don't know these, make sure to find out as soon as you can. So inputs really in a growth engine, this is the trickier part of building the growth engine. And so what we need to think about is, well, how can we not overcomplicate this? And so the 3 inputs I want you to focus in on while watching each of these talks is the first one, which is churn. Okay, so if people are bottoming out of our product and we have no way to get them back into the product, they're just leaving right after the first time they sign up, well, that is an input that we want to focus in on. So that might be having our retention first marketing campaign, which if that's the case, make sure to check out Heap's day on retention first marketing. And you might want to look into, okay, what are these speakers actually talking about? What could we actually try that is going to help us reduce our churn rate? And so the other part is the average revenue per user. So this is really straightforward. It's like for each customer, how much is that customer worth to our business? And how can we drive that number up? So the last one is the number of customers. So most companies will spend a ginormous amount of their attention and budget on focusing on driving this input up as much as possible. But I'd actually argue if you focused on 1 and 2, which is churn and average revenue per user, you can actually create a much different business that is more sustainable because you are actually keeping the customers and growing with them. And so when you're thinking about the inputs you need to grow your business, really break it down to just these 3. What can you do in each of these boxes, whether it's churn, ARPU, or number of customers, to really drive the business forward? And so the last part of this is, all right, we know how to grow a growth engine. We know what inputs we want to do, but how do we really prioritize this? So I have seen so many teams just get to this stage and then they don't know what to do. They focus on just working hard and launching everything. And kudos to you if you can launch everything you learn from the Product-Led Summit. That would just be crazy. But what I see world-class teams do is use an input log. And how that really works is super simple. What we're really trying to do here is say, what is the input? And then really classify, okay, what could the impact be of this input? If we did do all the work to launch this, how confident are we that this will actually see a big result for our business? And then how easy is it? And then we can do is combine those scores and see, okay, what is the overall ICE score? How realistic is it to actually launch this and see a good outcome for our business? And so most people don't do this. And so you're going to get a ton of ideas at the Product-Led Summit, but what you need to really focus on too is just prioritize what actually matters. What are the outputs you want to drive in your business, and what inputs can we do to try and move that forward? And so what I encourage you to do is download your input log for free. Just go to that URL and make sure you make a copy of that Google Doc and start using this as you're going through the talks one by one, because you're going to get a flood of ideas of new ways to do things. And I don't want you to lose any of them, but I also want you to prioritize what are those things that you need to do first, because that's really what's going to matter. And so the conclusion here is that if you want to build a growth engine and really get the most out of the summit, first, you need to carve out the time. Second, you need to understand like what are those inputs and outputs that you need to focus in on as a business. And then third is prioritize. Use an input log or something like it to really understand what you need to focus in on for the next week, the next month, the next year. And what I encourage you to do, if you implement one experiment before the end of the experiment, I will give you my book for free. That is this same book. So just email me at wes@productled.com if you have implemented one experiment before January 31st, 2020. It's coming up very soon. And so thank you for listening to this video on how to get the most value out of the summit. I really hope you find this summit is incredibly valuable for you, and make sure you take action and don't just participate. Have a great day. Cheers.